Okay, in this video I'm going to explain what you need to do for your pre-production for your SAT if you are creating a film. So if you're doing photography, you are watching the wrong video. Now I have shared this slideshow with you as well, and all the links that I will show you on this presentation will be on that slideshow. So to access any of the stuff that we look at, you want to open that as well. Okay, so the first thing that you need to do, you should have already written a treatment. So you should have already outlined your story and exactly what's going to happen in your story. The next thing to do is to write a script or a screenplay, which is the name of a script that is written for the screen. A couple of things that you need to know about with a screenplay. The main rule is 1 page equals 1 minute. So if your film, you should be aiming for about 6 minutes or possibly less. If you're edging towards the 10-minute mark, your film's probably too long. I heard someone say once, the best 10-minute film is a 6-minute film. And that basically means that a lot of the time you are adding stuff that doesn't need to be there. You're going to lose audience engagement. Plus you're giving yourself more work to do. So you're aiming for about 6 pages in total. And you're thinking about what you want to happen in each minute of your film. So if you're spending 3 pages just kind of introducing your character, you're taking far too long. So that's something to keep in mind. The next thing is that you need a new scene for every change of time and location. We'll talk about how to write scenes in the script soon, but anytime your character moves location or anytime your character changes time, you need to write a scene. So if you've got a character and he's walking out of one room into another, that's the beginning of a new scene because he's changed location. If you have a character falling asleep and then waking up the next day, that's a new scene because it's a change of time. Now, we don't need to worry too much about this because we're going to be using software that's going to do all this for us. But the font that's used traditionally in a screenplay is 12-point Courier. And the reason that is because Courier kind of looks like a typewriter. And obviously before computers, people wrote scripts on typewriters. And that's where this 1 page per minute rule kind of came from, because the size of the font and how much, and kind of the readability of that font as well, is what the scripts look like and how scripts are read. Now, I was talking about screenwriting software, and I recommend that you use this one. It's free, it's online, it's cloud-based, so you don't have to worry about saving stuff. You will have to sign up. You'll have to set up an account, but you can do so with your school login, your school Gmail, and the website is Write a Duet. So you can see that there. When you get on for the first time, you're going to have to sign up, and like I said, that'll just be with your Gmail account. I've already done that, and so this is my account here, and this is what it looks like. Pretty straightforward word processing account, but this is what a script traditionally looks like. And this software will help you write it. So you can see over on the left-hand side here, we have the toolbar. And on the script, we have different ways to format it, different elements of the script. And this software will create those elements and format those elements for you. So it's kind of tricky to do this on a Word document because you can see there part of the script is kind of indented from the margins. There's lots of different spaces and stuff. So you can do it on a Word document or on a Google document, much easier to do it this way. We've got a scene heading here, which is this thing that we see at the start. We have action, which is these parts here which explain what's going on. We have characters, which is the names of the characters who are going to be talking. Dialogue, which is what the characters are saying. These brackets here, which are called parentheticals, and there's an example of, well, there's not. Well, let's put one in. Let's say Mr. Higgs is talking in a dull monotone. That's just to tell your actors how the dialogue needs to be delivered. And you would only use these if that didn't come across naturally in the dialogue. So maybe if someone's speaking sarcastically, and that sarcasm didn't come through in the written word, then you would use one of these parentheticals to show how the dialogue needs to be delivered. Transitions you shouldn't have to use so much, and things like shot sizes and stuff. Don't worry too much about what camera angles and things that you're going to include, unless you really desperately want to, or to remind yourself. What that looks like, just say we fade into this scene here. I might add that as a transition. And you can see there, once I start typing it, I get a little drop box of selections. The other thing too is that this software works to try to assume what you're going to be writing about when you're writing your script. So let's just start a new scene here. So we'll go scene, and the scene heading starts with an interior and exterior. It'll pop up with things that I've already written, and you need to choose the time that the scene is happening. When I hit enter, this software knows that after every scene heading we have action lines. Okay, so there's my action line. When I hit enter, it thinks that I'm going to write more action. In fact, I'm going to start writing dialogue. So I'm going to click character there, or I can just, if I just hit the tab key on my keyboard, it'll select different elements that I might be typing. I've already written some characters' names here, so if I start typing those, they'll pop up automatically. If I hit enter, it's going to go straight to dialogue. So you can see that really formats the script for you and makes it a lot easier for you to use. Another thing that you'll need to know about with this software is when you want to print it out or export it, you want to export it as a PDF. Okay, so that's the best way to share this once you've finished your script. And once you want to add it to your SAT folio, you'll want to export it as a PDF. Yeah, so I mentioned production notes. You can include camera and movement shots, all that kind of thing. You don't have to. Now, this is the biggest rule and the best rule, and something that I'm probably going to also say to you all at some point. Show, don't tell. When you are writing a script, you need to show what's happening. You don't tell what's happening. You need to write what is being shown on the screen. Okay, you don't need to be flowery. This is not English. You don't need to go into. You can go into description. But you only need to go into as much description as is necessary to indicate what we're going to be seeing on the screen. But here's some examples of things that you might write in a script which would be wrong, and we want to think about how we're going to do this differently. Chris was worried that Lisa would know what he was thinking. Now, if you write that in your script, what does that tell us? What are we going to see on the screen? What else would you need to write? Just have a second to think about that. What you would want to write is the expression on Chris's face, or what Chris is doing to his hands, or what's the expression on Lisa's face. All right, what are we seeing when this is happening on the screen? This film is a visual medium, and you need to show, not tell. Brian was confused. Again, you're going to want to show, rather than say Brian was confused, you would need to say Brian had a confused look on his face. Luke was sad, but try not to show it. You would want to say something like, Luke's eyes filled up with tears, but he turned away at the last minute, so the other people couldn't see him. Okay, so I'm probably at some point when I'm giving you feedback going to say show, don't tell, which means that you are not going into enough detail about what can be seen on the screen. Like I said before, this is not English, so be descriptive but not flowery or over descriptive. You're not writing poetry, you're writing a script. You can be descriptive if it's necessary. If it's necessary to describe what's being shown on the screen, if someone is wearing a particular color clothing and that's important to create meaning, then say that. If someone has a particular haircut and that's important to what's happening on the screen, then you need to write that in your script. But if it's not important, don't include it. And don't spend too much time trying to describe things that you don't need to describe. Only mention what is necessary and relevant. If a person or thing becomes relevant later in the scene, it should be pointed out early. So if you're setting the scene and you're in a room at home and there's a TV and there's a table and there's chairs and there's beanbags and there's pictures on the walls, you don't need to go into detail about every single thing, but you do want to kind of point out what kind of a room it is, what does the decor look like, and if there's a particular thing that we're going to refer to the picture that's hanging on the wall later on in the scene, then you might want to point that out early. So these are the different elements of the script format, and some of these that I've already shown you as I was typing it out before. At the start of every scene, we have something called a slug line. And you'll see in these slug lines on this example here, we've got INT or EXT, which stands for interior or exterior, followed by the location. And you need to be specific about that. Don't just say classroom, because it could be a media classroom, it could be a maths classroom, it could be a food tech classroom. There's many different kinds of classrooms, so be specific. And then whether or not it's day or night. And this is important for lighting. And notice that the slug line is written in all caps, but Writer Duet will do that for you. Action lines come after every scene heading, so every slug line needs to have an action line following it, even if it's just the boys continue their conversation or just a continuation of what was happening in the previous scene. We need to treat every scene independently. You need to describe what you see in the scene. Remember, show, don't tell. New characters and all sound effects in all caps. So if you are introducing a character, so you can see in this example here, if we look at the action line up the top, Mr. Higgs is in capital letters, Year 11 media class is in capital letters, students are in capital letters because they're being introduced. And if you scroll down to the third last action line from the bottom, you can see Mr. Higgs is written in lowercase, so only in capitals for the first time they're introduced. And scene action lines are written in present tense. So it is a usual day at school, not it was a usual day at school, or it is going to be a usual day at school. It is, you're writing it in present tense. Even if you're doing an historical drama that happened 200 years ago, you're still writing it in present tense. Okay, dialogue. So you can see that we have the name of the character who's talking in all caps, followed by what they're saying. You can see that the dialogue is indented from the side. So when you look at the page on a script, the dialogue should stand right out, and you will be able to see how much dialogue there is in a scene just by a quick glimpse at the page. There's a couple of abbreviations in there, so you can see up the top that we've got the narrator, and next to the narrator we've got VO, that stands for voiceover. So if we can hear the character but they are not in the scene, it's a voiceover. If you go down to Mr. Higgs about halfway down the page, and next to his name we have OS, that means off screen, which means that the character is in the scene but we can't see them. So maybe if they're calling out from behind a door, or we're focused on a character's face and we can't see the person who's talking, or they're calling out from another room, we put OS next to their name. And I talked about a little bit before about parentheticals or dialogue direction. So you can see under Mr. Higgs, we've got dull monotone in brackets. That is describing the way that a character is talking, and it should only be used when absolutely necessary. Use this sparingly. If a character is angry and they're saying, "I hate you," we can kind of get an idea about how that dialogue is going to be delivered. Like I mentioned before, if someone's talking sarcastically, that doesn't always come through naturally. So you might want to use a dialogue direction or a parenthetical to make that clear, but only if it's necessary.